You know Dr. Pepper, right? I mean, of course you do. It's that can of soda, the one with a taste that, well, you can't quite put your finger on it. But what if I told you the real story is packed with secret formulas, bank vaults, huge legal showdowns with Coca-Cola, and a wild marketing stunt with one of the biggest rock bands in history? Yeah, this is gonna be fun.
Okay, so let's start with the big question, the one everyone asks. What does it actually taste like? You could ask 10 different people and you'd probably get 10 different answers. Is it cherry, vanilla, maybe some almond? And then there's that rumor that just won't die, prune juice? The truth is, the flavor is so unique, it's a total enigma. But the official answer? Well, that's even weirder than you think.
You heard that right. Legally, Dr. Pepper is literally in a class by itself. The FDA actually had to step in and create a whole new category just for it, pepper soda. So no, it's not a cola, it's not root beer, it's a category of one. And honestly, that's the perfect way to kick off this one-of-a-kind story. So, to really get what this drink is all about, here's our game plan. We're gonna start with that super secret 23 flavor recipe. Then, we'll jump back to its surprising origin story in Texas. After that, we'll see how it managed to survive against the industry giants, explore its crazy new flavors, and finally, look at how it became this massive cultural icon. Okay, first stop, the heart of the mystery. The company's whole thing is that there are 23 different flavors blended into every single can. And the way they protect this secret, well, it sounds like something straight out of a spy movie.
I'm not kidding. This is the real deal. The complete recipe doesn't even exist in one single place. The legend is that the formula is torn in two. Each half is then locked up in a different safe deposit box at two totally separate banks in Dallas. The whole point is to make sure that no one person on Earth can ever know the entire secret. It's brilliant.
You know, when you have that level of secrecy, you're just asking for some wild theories to pop up. The biggest one, of course, is the prune juice myth. It's been around for so long that the company has been officially shooting it down for almost 100 years. And then, back in 2009, this guy finds an old recipe book in an antique shop, a recipe for Dr. Pepper's Pepsin Bitters. Everybody thought, this is it, the code is cracked. But nope. The company came out and said it was just an old formula for a digestive aid. The secret of the 23 flavors remains safe.
All right, let's rewind. Where did this all start? Because long before it was a global brand, Dr. Pepper was just a strange new drink whipped up by a pharmacist in Waco, Texas.
So picture this. It's 1885. A pharmacist named Charles Alderton is working at this place called Morrison's Old Corner Drugstore. He loved the smell of the shop, you know, how all the different fruit syrups from the soda fountain mixed together in the air. So he got an idea. What if he made a drink that tasted like that smell? And here's the kicker. Look at that date, 1885. That means Dr. Pepper is one full year older than Coca-Cola. It's actually America's oldest major soft drink. It didn't really blow up nationally until almost 2 decades later at the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904.
So what's with the name? Why a doctor? Well, the most likely theory is that back then, slapping doctor on your product was a classic marketing gimmick. They made it sound healthy, like it was good for you. But there's a much better story. The legend says the drugstore owner, Wade Morrison, named it after a Dr. Charles T. Pepper, who just so happened to be the father of a girl he was in love with. Great story, right? Problem is, historians have kind of picked it apart. So the real origin of the name is, well, it's just another part of the mystery.
You know, it's one thing to be the first, the quirky original. It's a whole other thing to survive when your competition are two of the biggest companies in the world. Dr. Pepper's history is a true David versus Goliath story, and the battles were fought in the courtroom. And this slide perfectly shows how Dr. Pepper refused to get bullied. In 1972, Coca-Cola decided they wanted a piece of that unique pepper soda action, so they launched a drink that tasted suspiciously similar, and they had the nerve to call it Peppo. Dr. Pepper didn't waste a second. They sued for trademark infringement, they won, and they forced Coke to change the name to Mr. Pibb. It was a huge victory that proved Dr. Pepper's identity was worth fighting for.
And that wasn't just a one-time thing. This was a long, drawn-out war. It started way back in 1951 with lawsuits over trade practices. Then you had the whole Peppo debacle. And then in the 80s, Coke tried to end the fight for good by just buying Dr. Pepper outright. But the US government actually had to step in. The FTC blocked the sale because it would create an unfair monopoly. Again and again, the underdog just kept finding a way to win. So, after proving it could survive the war, Dr. Pepper did something it hadn't done in over a century. It started to change things up. Big time.
Just think about that for a moment. For 122 years, if you bought a Dr. Pepper, you got Dr. Pepper. That was it, one flavor. But then, starting in the 2000s, the floodgates just opened. The brand started rolling out a ton of new, experimental, and sometimes really weird flavors.
Now, this new era of experimenting definitely had some hits and some misses. The very first try, Red Fusion, was a famous flop. Then there was Dr. Pepper 10, which got a ton of attention, but mostly for its absolutely bizarre "it's not for women" advertising. Seriously. But they also found some real winners. Limited runs like Dark Berry for a Spider-Man movie were a huge success. And Strawberries and Cream was so popular as a limited release that they had to make it a permanent flavor. So, how in the world does a strange soda with a secret recipe and a history of fighting with Coke become one of America's most loved brands? Simple. It leaned into its own weirdness and made its fans feel like part of a special club.
This jingle from the 70s was pure genius. It wasn't just about selling a drink, it was about selling an identity. You weren't just a customer anymore, you were a Pepper. It created this incredibly loyal tribe of fans, and that idea has stuck with the brand for decades.
And this mindset came from the very top. Instead of trying to come up with a simple way to describe their flavor, they just celebrated the fact that it was indescribable. Like their former CEO said, the whole point is that you can't explain it. They took what could have been a huge marketing headache and turned it into their greatest strength, just being totally, unapologetically unique. And that quirky, confident attitude is still going strong. In 2008, they made one of the wildest bets in marketing history. They promised a free Dr. Pepper to every single person in America if the band Guns N' Roses finally released their album Chinese Democracy, which at that point had been delayed for more than a decade. Well, later that year, the album actually dropped. The stunt was a media frenzy, and you know what? They kept their promise.
So, after this long, strange journey, where did it all lead? Well, after more than a century of fighting and innovating and just being different, Dr. Pepper did what everyone thought was impossible. It officially knocked Pepsi out of the way to become the #2 best-selling soda in the entire United States. The underdog from Waco, Texas finally took the silver medal.
What a ride, right? From a pharmacist trying to capture a scent in a bottle to a cultural powerhouse that built a whole community of peppers. The story of this brand is just a masterclass in why you should always embrace what makes you different.
And it really makes you think, doesn't it? In a world that is always chasing the newest, hottest thing, what's that secret ingredient, beyond the 23 flavors, that gives a brand the power to not just stick around, but to become a true icon that stands the test of time?